In Venezuela, the Minister of Communes and Social Movements announced justices of peace to be elected on Sunday will be in charge of enforcing communal justice in the country. The Mexican Chamber of Deputies approved on Wednesday 9.3 trillion pesos, that is equal to 442.7 billion euros, for the 2025 federal budget. And the Syrian Socialist Party, Baath, has suspended all its activities and functions until further notice, while it is currently working on the release of its militants. Hello and welcome to From the South. My name is Belen de los Santos. I'm from the teleSUR studios in Caracas, Venezuela. We begin with the news. And now we begin with the information. In Venezuela, the Minister of Communes and Social Movements, Angel Prado, announced that justices of peace to be elected on Sunday will be in charge of enforcing communal justice in the country. The minister provided the emblematic 23 of January parish as an example, as such commune in Caracas counts with valuable candidates for the election to be held on December 15th. It is worth noticing that the Ministry of the Communes, in conjunction with the Supreme Court of Justice, will be responsible for providing specialized training to over 30,000 justices. In this regard, Prado remarked that those trained justices would do justice to ourselves, as they will cope with our problems, grounded in that they are part of the communes and love the communes, noting that only the people can save the people. And we continue in Venezuela, as President Nicolás Maduro has condemned the calls from the far right to a civil war in the country. During an assembly with the candidates for justices of peace, whose elections will take place next December 15th, the Venezuelan head of state referred to the recent calls by the extreme right wing to burst out a civil war in the country, stating that in Venezuela there will be permanent mobilizations to guarantee peace. The president further stressed that these calls to violence have serious consequences since they go against national laws. Concurrently, he pointed out that through his public denunciations, the representative of the extreme right, Edmundo González, is not only violating the legal framework of the country, but also the agreement that he signed in order to obtain political asylum.
Y ahora entonces llama a que haya una guerra en Venezuela.
And now you are calling for a war in Venezuela. Old man, be careful with what you say from there. It has serious consequences. Watch your words. Do not make a mistake with the people of Venezuela. In Venezuela, there will be no war. Old man. What causes me to tell you, old man? Do not play with fire. Respect Venezuela.
No juegues con candela.
You are violating the agreement you signed. You are violating the right to asylum with Spain. Stop calling for civil war in Venezuela.
Deja de estar llamando una guerra civil en Venezuela.
And we continue in Venezuela, as activities are already underway in the framework of the upcoming 24th summit of the ALBA TCP. In Caracas, youngsters participated at an ALBA political council model to learn and promote the mechanisms of the principle. Let's listen.
First of all, in the framework of the ALBA, well, it is really important that we, as Venezuelans, get to know this type of organization, of activities, as students as well, because we get to know a little more about the current world, what surrounds us, and the great importance that the ALBA represents for Venezuela.
We are already going towards the transition of a new world, of a new multipolar world, and the ALBA TCP adheres to that new world, where all the islands are not a colony, but are independent and sovereign peoples, and also, we, from here is the ALBA, talk about the peoples directly, about the social movements. We also break with the paradigm of the relation state-state, and we go beyond, towards the human being with the human being, towards the man with the man, towards the woman with the woman, towards the child with the child, towards us to be able to discover that new horizon, that without a doubt the traditional model has not allowed us to know. It is undoubtedly important to adhere to this integration mechanism in order to be able to live and learn firsthand about these experiences, which will surely be the future of Latin America and the Caribbean.
And we go now to Peru as the Minister of Education, Morgan Quero, described those that were killed during protests against the government of Dina Boluarte as rats. In the framework of Human Rights Day, the Minister of Education issued a series of despicable comments, emphasizing in a press conference that human rights are for people, not for rats, after being questioned about the lack of government pronouncements on the death in the protests. In these citizens' demonstrations 2 years ago, 49 civilians were killed by the forces of order in different departments of the country after demanding the exit of President Dina Boluarte and the members of the current Congress. For her part, Boluarte is being investigated by the public prosecutor for the alleged crime of genocide. And in Honduras, the President Xiomara Castro assured that her administration has made the largest public investment in the history of the country. The President expressed this in the activity for the 199th anniversary of the Armed Forces in Tegucigalpa, capital of the Central American nation. She also highlighted that the construction of hospitals, schools, sports fields, roads, as well as the coverage of social programs related to food and health, in addition to giving an account of the progress of her government in the fight against crime and drug trafficking.
My government has made the largest public investment in the history of Honduras. In highways, productive roads, airports, education, schools, scholarships, free tuition, school lunch, health, hospitals, sports, support for agriculture, energy, security, fuel subsidies.
And now we have a short break coming up, but first, remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. The Mexican Chamber of Deputies approved on Wednesday 9.3 trillion pesos, that is equal to 442.7 billion euros, for the 2025 federal budget. After over 4 hours of debate, legislators passed the first budget of Sheinbaum's government with 349 votes in favor and 129 against, registering no abstentions. The spending plan of the executive has been estimated at over 472 million euros, which will be fundamentally allocated to social programs. Moreover, Marilyn Gomez Pozo, president of the Finance Commission of the legislature, assured that the regulation prioritizes economic growth, shared prosperity, economic stability, and public finances. And the Brazilian government spurred the international community to support Haiti in view of the violence wave that the country is facing. The Brazilian Foreign Ministry urged support for the interim government's efforts to ensure public safety, economic development, and social pacification in Haiti. The ministry issued the statement in appalling rejection to a massacre that left on Sunday over 189 people dead. The incident occurred in a town of Port-au-Prince, capital, where members of a criminal group massacred nearly 200 elderly people. And also in this context, Haitian authorities have confirmed a new massacre that left at least 20 people killed, perpetrated in the department of Artibonite in the center of the country. Between Tuesday night and early Wednesday morning, while sleeping in their homes in the commune of Petite Rivière, at least 20 people were killed in an armed attack perpetrated by a criminal group known as Grand Griffe. Authorities at the Artibonite Peace Initiative Committee described that among the dead victims were children who were brutally massacred. The attack is a retaliation against the residents of the area who had managed to eliminate several members of the criminal group since the return of the Haitian National Police to the region. And in Colombia on Wednesday, the economic commissions of the Senate and the House of Representatives voted against the financing bill proposed by the government of President Gustavo Petro. The bill, which began its processing after several days of delay, was supposed to guarantee close to 12 trillion pesos, that is a little bit more than $2,700 million, for sustainable economic reactivation, adaptation to climate change, and sustainable development within a framework of fiscal sustainability and new tools to strengthen the control and operation of the tax system. President Gustavo Petro assured through his social networks that the decision is a hard blow against the people, while the Minister of the Interior assured that a sensible discussion of the norm was not allowed.
The regrettable thing about today's decision is that a discussion was not allowed, and we had urged the benches, the members of the third and fourth commissions, to open the debate and to discuss point by point the advance payment of the fiscal rule, because taxes and gambling were excluded in the report. We wanted to discuss each one of the points of the reform, and there was no opportunity to discuss them, to move forward in that debate. It seems to me that there was a haste on the part of the commissions in not allowing the debate. I believe that the country deserved that debate.
And we continue in Colombia, where the bidding for a minimum wage increase has started, and some unions have already proposed their percentage, which is far from the proposal of the workers represented in the central labor unions. Let's see more in the following material.
As usual for this month, the central labor, trade unions, industrial organizations, and government meet to discuss the increase in the minimum wage for workers in the country. The Colombian Association of Micro, Small, and Medium Enterprises initially put on the table its proposal of 5%, a figure that could be approaching the other unions. However, they did not give their proposal and left in the hands of the Ministry of Labor and the government the evolution of the table of consultation.
The great interest that we have is to reach an agreement this year. Some people ask us why we have not given a number, and the reason why we have not given it is because we really believe that the probability of agreement increases a lot if we allow the government to play the role of intermediary or conciliator in the middle of this tripartite work. As it happened in the year 2022 and in the year 2023, we almost succeeded in achieving it.
For their part, the workers, who were members of and represented by the National Unitary Command, assured that the initiative of the small businessmen is illegal, since it does not take into account other indicators, only the inflation index. They proposed a two-digit increase and made a series of suggestions with measures to maintain the purchasing power of the workers and thinking of the increases that are coming next year.
We need a review of the housing rental rates, that the increases of products regulated by the state be reviewed, so that they are never higher than inflation, that the proposals of the pensioners be considered, so that the pension allowance is equal to the minimum wage, and that the health contribution is reduced, as well as the contribution to the family compensation funds.
La cotización en salud como la cotización para las cajas de compensación familiar.
that the Bank of the Republic's interest rates be significantly reduced because they have been a brake on economic reactivation, that financial expenses be reviewed, and that the minimum wage increase for 2025 be 12%.
En ese contexto, ¿qué expectativa hay
In
del
this
ciudadano a pie
context,
con
what
relación a esa
expectations
ciudadano a
do
pie
ordinary
con relación a
citizens
esa
have
negociación
regarding these
y los resultados?
negotiations and their results?
It is not enough for a person who earns the minimum wage, and even more so for a person who pays rent, who has a family. They always raise it very little, and then they raise the public transportation. So no, it must be something that allows one as a Colombian to be able to subsist.
Perhaps in a middle ground between what the private sector and the workers' union are asking for, because it is really necessary for all people to have access to a better quality of life. That is the idea.
Los datos claves para la discusión
The
del
key
salario
data for the
mínimo
discussion of the minimum wage are inflation, which is 5.2%, the contribution of wages to GDP, which is 2%, and productivity, which ranges between 1.73% and 3.43%. The first deadline is December 15th to reach a consensus on the minimum wage increase, where for the moment the parties seem to be distant. The deadline is December 30th. Otherwise, it will be signed by decree.
Hernán Darío Tobar Gaitán, teleSUR, Bogotá, Colombia.
Now we have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at teleSUR English, there you will be able to rewatch our interviews, top stories, special broadcastings, and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final short break, don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. We go now to Syria, as this Wednesday the Syrian Socialist Party Baath suspended all its activities and functions until further notice, while it is currently working on the release of its militants. The party's General Secretary Ibrahim Al-Adid informed that the measure will allow the militants to return to the entities in which they originally worked and to make themselves available to them. Al-Hadid also called on the militants to hand over all the mechanisms, vehicles, and weapons to the Ministry of the Interior or to the nearest police unit or police station, and to draw up an official record of these. The goods and funds of the party will be under the supervision of the Ministry of Finance and the Ministry of Justice. And in addition, its revenues will be deposited in the Central Bank of Syria to be disbursed in accordance with the law by the current government. And also in this context, the Military Operations Department announced the cancellation of the curfew imposed by week in Damascus by terrorist factions. The Syrian entity called on citizens to return to their work normally and contribute to the formation of the new Syria. It also urged the Syrian people to keep their distance from public institutions and military barracks. The organization also reiterated its commitment to guarantee protection and reward any person with information about the existence of secret prisons. On November 27th, terrorist forces launched a surprise offensive against the Syrian army, taking control of several cities and proclaiming the fall of the government of Bashar al-Assad. And the government of Egypt condemned the Israeli attacks on military installations in Syria and the actions of the Zionist state in the Golan Heights. The Egyptian Foreign Ministry considered that this Israeli aggression against the military installations and its attempts to expand its zone of influence by occupying Syrian territories is a flagrant violation of international law. Cairo also stated that the Israeli authorities seek to profit from the political vacuum imposed in Syria by the aggressive escalation of terrorist factions. In this regard, the Foreign Ministry called on the United Nations Security Council and the international community to take measures to stop the escalation of the Israeli occupation. And Major General Commander-in-Chief of Iran's Islamic Revolution Guard Corps, Hossein Salami, assured that they keep up supporting the resistance, reaffirming that the Iranian forces have not diminished. Salami met Thursday with several commanders, in which the leader further condemned the U.S. and Israeli exploitation of the current Syrian crisis. Furthermore, the Commander-in-Chief underscored that the Iranian government has made great efforts in recent years to ensure the geographical independence of the Palestinian and Lebanese resistance. Moreover, the Major General also unfolded that Iranian officials informed Syrian authorities about the Takfiri movement in the area. Finally, Salami noted that the Iranian military strength enabled them for the launching of True Promise 1 and 2 operations. The General Assembly of the United Nations adopted 2 resolutions calling for a ceasefire in the Palestinian Gaza and rejecting the Israeli regime's restriction on the Agency for Palestinian Refugees, the UNRWA. The ceasefire resolution was approved by 158 countries, 9 were against it and 13 abstained. The decision includes the immediate and unconditional release of all detainees with immediate access for the civilian population of the Gaza Strip to basic services and humanitarian assistance. On the other hand, the resolution prohibits operations against the UNRWA and was approved with 159 votes in favor, 9 against, and 11 abstentions. It determines that Tel Aviv must comply with its international obligations and respect the immunity of this agency. However, it is important to note that the resolutions of the UN General Assembly are not binding.
ES 10L33, please signify those.
In other news, on Thursday, in a televised address, South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol defended his decision to implement martial law in the country. In his second public appearance since last week's martial law decree, he classified it as inevitable measure to protect liberal democracy from the opposition's parliamentary dictatorship. Yoon is currently being investigated for a crime of insurrection that can carry life imprisonment or the death penalty. Senior military commanders have claimed in recent days that both the president and former defense minister Kim Jong-un personally gave them orders to forcibly empty the parliament. And like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also join us on social media. We are on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and also on TikTok. For TeleSUR English, my name is Belén de los Santos. Thank you for watching.